spawned an amazing series of live-action superhero TV shows aimed at children, all thanks to the popularity of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Most shows we got were adaptations of Japanese TV shows that were shoehorned to cater to American audiences with American actors and footage. Very few of these were actually American-made from the ground up. The concept of what's essentially an American tokusatsu, or special effects show, is really pretty unique and interesting, but unfortunately it very rarely struck gold. Thus is the case with a TV show that Avram requested to be reviewed called Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills. I know, the name is so long and stupid and ridiculously convoluted that you think, oh, that can't possibly be a real show, and yet, unfortunately it is! Granted, it wasn't a very successful show, and yet despite its absolute non-success, it managed to get a season with 40 episodes. 40 episodes! How is that possible? If you've heard of it, or you watched it in 1994, you were probably part of a very narrow demographic who managed to do so. You had to have had access to USA, for starters. I didn't have much cable personally, so for the most part, I only ever heard about the show in passing from my friends in elementary school. Realize the time frame in which this came out. Yes, it's absolutely trying to cash in on the popularity of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which launched on US television in 1993. And who was the producer of this series? DiC. These are the same guys who did other animated stuff you like Inspector Gadget, and our original English localization of Sailor Moon. Realize DiC and Saban, the producers of Power Rangers, were essentially neck and neck in competition for children's entertainment in the mid-90s. And just as a reminder to those of you who forgot, the two companies were in an all-out brawl for the rights to Sailor Moon back in the day. Remember when Saban, while partnered with Toon Makers, tried to make their live-action reanimated bid for those rights in 1994? The interesting part is that when Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills aired in October of 1994, DiC already had another live-action superhero show that had just started airing only 3 weeks before that, called Superhuman Samurai Syber-Squad. And I bet the one you remember the most is Syber-Squad, right? Well, it really only makes sense. At least Syber-Squad was built on a pre-existing show called Denko Chojin Gridman, created by Tsuburaya Productions, the same guys who make Ultraman. And their marketing was infinitely better. They at least got toys. So tell me, what do you remember about Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills? What toys did they have? Where are the t-shirts and the activity books? You go looking, you'll find almost nothing. Even the guest stars seem to want to have next to nothing to do with this show because they aren't credited on Wikipedia or IMDb or other such places. You can't even find easily tracked down episode synopses for the 40 episodes, despite the fact that the series got an official DVD release in 2013. Speaking of which, how did the full series manage to get a DVD release when you know there are more deserving TV shows out there that still haven't gotten home video releases? The only memorabilia I managed to find was this one Aladdin brand thermos, which probably means it came paired with the lunchbox, but I can't even find its lunchbox counterpart. If we all decided as a mass collective body to just choose not to remember this TV series existed, it would probably be really easy to wipe its existence clean off the face of the earth. And maybe it would be better if we did, because despite DiC's valiant effort to create an entire live-action hero show out of nothing when the rest of the industry was making a mad dash to grab cheap licensing to Japanese shows and then make bank like Power Rangers did, Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. Okay, so what's the premise? I suppose I could let part of the intro tell you.
Molecular. Home planet to the diabolically evil Emperor Gorganis. Gorganis has vowed to use his army of alien monsters to conquer Earth. The focal point of a system of power portals he needs to rule the universe. I am Nimbar, head protector of the power portals. To carry out my mission to stop Gorganis, I have chosen 4 teenagers from Beverly Hills. I summoned them by flashing their tattoos. Then they transform into galactic sentinels.
Scorpio! Horus!
The fate of the Earth depends on these tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills.
For the most part, it really is just that simple. And it never gets more complicated than that. Earth has these things called power portals. I guess they're important for space transportation from one planet to the other. So it makes sense that an evil overlord would want access to these portals for the sake of galactic domination. So now Earth has to protect these portals. And only a Zordon-like alien blob figure named Nimbar can give some supremely underqualified kids the power to protect these portals and save the universe. Okay, there's a ton of holes all over the place in here, so let me get started, because this is going to take a while. Let's start with the actors playing our 4 teenage heroes, alright? Because not a single one of them is a teenager. I know, we're kind of used to having older actors play younger characters, but come the hell on now. The kids are in high school in the series, so they should have been between 16 and 18. Looking the actors up, only 2 of them have their birthdays listed. Carla Jill Sorgan was 25 at the time this series was on the air, and Leslie Dannon was 28. There's nothing relatable about these people at all. Alright, so let's go about how these people are brought together because it absolutely doesn't make sense. We start with Swinton, who's the stereotypical nerd that is frequently played as uncool, and his teammates eventually seem like they always want to change him. He's actually a year younger than the other 3 kids, so he isn't even in any classes with them. His dad wants him to start working with others because he thinks his son is working by himself too much and doesn't understand the value of teamwork.
You know how proud I am that you're so smart, but sometimes in life you're going to have to learn to work with others.
Why? Einstein worked alone.
So he sets him up with some study time with 3 other kids he's never hung out with before to finish a project. So many holes here! 1. Where did he pull these names from? Did he close his eyes and pick names out of the yearbook at random? 2. If they're in different classes, why are they working on the same science project, and why does Gordon want his name on it so badly?
When we present it to the class, I'd better do it. See, of the 4 of us, I have the best communication skills.
And then comes a third problem. Swinton brings the entire science project completed all by himself, and when the other kids spill soda on it, it seems to open a portal, seemingly at random. Eventually, all 4 kids decide to go inside. This is where Swinton, Gordon, Drew, and Laurie meet Nimbar for the first time, who tells them that he summoned the 4 of them there on purpose.
Drew?
No, I like her disdain of protocol. It is the reason I summoned her.
Saying you brought us here on purpose?
Yes.
So how did that work exactly? He knew it was specifically these 4 kids he wanted? Was he just waiting around in hopes that somebody would randomly bring these 4 kids who previously never had anything to do with one another together? Or does Nimbar have some mystical power where he's able to influence the decisions of Swinton's dad to secretly bring them together in the first place? Because if that's it, nobody ever explained it. But wait! Continuity issue! In episode 14, the 4 kids are cut off from Nimbar, and he can't open a portal to bring them to him. So they come up with a plan to make their own portal.
Hey, this thing opened a portal once. It could do it again.
Wait, no. How does that work? Did somebody forget that it was Nimbar who opened it up in episode 1, and the fact that you spilled soda on electronics right at that very moment was explained to be a perfect coincidence? Mind you, these are all huge holes showing that are tied back to episode 1, and this just keeps happening throughout the course of the series. So anyway, Nimbar explains that Earth needs its portals protected, or Earth is gonna be dominated. By the way, can I talk about these portals for a second here? Are we talking about the portals that Nimbar throws out all the time for the kids to travel through, or are the power portals something completely different? Because I just want to point out that at no point do we ever see anyone actually physically protect a portal, despite the fact that this is the entire conflict of the show. In fact, there's even this one time in episode 4 where the bad guy, Gorganis, seems to be tampering with portals to screw up Nimbar and his hero kids.
If I sabotage the portals and lure the Sentinels into them, I can sabotage the Galactic Sentinels themselves.
So wait, you know where the portals are? Why are you not claiming them for your own use and using them to further your galactic domination? Why are you just messing around with them? I have to assume that Gorganas gets defeated so many times that he forgets his original plan to dominate the universe and instead just creates his own personal grudge match against these kids. In any case, Nimbar gives the kids these so-called tattoos that give them the powers to become 4 really enormous heroes he likes to call the Galactic Sentinels. In fact, there's only one time the line, "tattooed teenage alien fighters from Beverly Hills" is ever used, in episode 1.
After all, we are the tattooed teenage alien fighters
From Beverly Hills.
The rest of the time, it's almost always Galactic Sentinels. Aside from the maybe 4 times they're referred to as tattooed teenagers, and that's it. And I think we're using the word tattoo a little loosely. It's certainly not an ink job. It's some kind of luminescent alien something. Some kind of black-light concoction. I'm honestly not sure what the tattoos do other than blink to get the kids' attention before a portal opens up in a really inconvenient place near them. Like in the girls' bathroom or under a table or something weird like that. But now the kids can stand on these things called transodiscs that transport them to a battlefield where a monster is, under new superhero names based on night sky constellations.
Scorpio!
Taurus!
Centaur!
Apollo!
When the kids are teleported to this place where the monster already is, they're dressed up in super tight and shiny gladiator latex and with muscular bodybuilders as their stunt double suit actors. While in this form, the kids are forever enormous, matching the size of the monster they're fighting for the episode. At least I think that's true. There's a couple of instances where a kid was kidnapped by a monster and taken back to Gorganas' lair, and he remains the same size as the monsters. So, I'm confused about whether this means that Gorganas and his monsters are permanently huge, or if the kids resize themselves when they're kidnapped, and why it is that it doesn't transform them back into their skinny, dweeby, normal selves. Also, can we talk about these monsters for a second here? And the fights, maybe? Because the whole situation is just sad, really. Gorganas, over the course of the series, only ever summons a grand total of 10 monsters. Just 10. And remember, this is a 40-episode series. That means that all these monsters show up over and over and over. Some of them show up like 5 times. So, despite the fact that the episodes like to pretend that the teenagers have defeated one of Gorganas' monsters at the end of the day, the truth is, they've never really defeated even a single monster, because they always come back! Sometimes, the kids see the same monster so many times, they don't actually seem to remember when they've seen a whole new one.
Sorry, Gordon. I've detected Voldak roaming your planet.
Boldak? I hope he's not more charged up than last time.
No, this is actually the first time you've seen him. How do you know how strong he is? Or how about the episode where Ninjabot actually tries to usurp Gorganas and Gorganas gets pissed about it, and then he chooses to summon him again the very next episode? And the fights? Man, was there a choreographer? For many of the fights for a long, long time, it often feels like they just use the same simplistic choreography over and over again. The guy playing Taurus can't even kick, for crying out loud. Not to mention, it feels like the Galactic Sentinel's favorite mode of transportation is cartwheels! Whee! It takes getting more than halfway into the series before you start to see the actors using chalk to make their hits look a little more explosive than they actually are. Oh, plus bad clip art animated GIF explosions. Oh yeah, and then there's the weapons. The weapons themselves aren't actually a problem. Some of them, in fact, look pretty cool. But at no point do the Sentinels ever actually physically melee their enemy with any of these weapons. They just shoot what look like laser fruit at the enemy until it disappears. In fact, oftentimes they just keep shooting at the spot until long after the monster has been teleported away from battle. They just continue shooting at absolutely nothing, deep into dead space. At this point, why have melee weapons at all? Why didn't Deke just give them laser guns? It would have served literally the exact same purpose. Also, you think you see the same monsters a lot? Wait until you realize that only a grand total of 3 fighting spaces ever get used. And of those spaces, the one you're going to see the most is this random rocky desert space. What are the monsters even doing out there? Screw that one rock in particular! And that tree, too! Very, very, very occasionally, a monster will attack some kind of human construct. Or then there's the few times where somebody starts a fight in the middle of a city. But even then, the monster rarely ever harms a building. Almost nobody ever even seems to know or acknowledge that the world is ever in any sort of danger from invading alien forces. Okay, maybe once or twice. But over the course of 40 episodes? Honestly, I don't feel any sort of threat to this fictional world at all. But wait! There's still one more thing needed to defend the Earth against this complete non-threat. The 4 Sentinels can combine their powers to become one super warrior called Nitron. Yeah, Nitron! He's a suit of armor, who also shoots lasers from his sword, and occasionally reflects attacks back off his shield, and thereby wins, to great clunky Casio keyboard fanfare and animated GIF explosions. To prove the laziness of the creators of the series, it's obvious that his suit is just a shiny version of nearly the exact same suit that the bobble-headed Gorganis wears every episode. It's painfully obvious in the one and only episode where Gorganis shows up to fight in place of his monsters. So that's basically the plot of all 40 episodes. I could stop there, but then I would be shortchanging you, wouldn't I? Anyway, every episode, except for 3 of them if you want to be exact, start out exactly the same way, with the exact same musical sting over the title, and an ugly shot of Gorganis and his pet bird thing, Lechner, who for the most part of the series is voiced by David Lander, who played Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley.
You see the look on their faces? Gave them the old Gorganis monster fake. Whew, are they dumb? They weren't expecting that move.
Then Gorganis summons a monster and sends them down to Earth to be completely non-threatening. Then we see the same horrible establishing shot of Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive, and one particular coffee house almost every single episode. Then it goes into the horrendous teen drama of the week. I already pointed out that the actors are too old for me to feel like I could have ever related to them, but let's not completely forget about them as human beings, because even then, they're all terrible, and I still can't relate to them. Swinton is so egghead smart that he doesn't talk like a normal human being at all.
I take their advice. This thing is putting out gigawatts of power.
That sounds mean, like I'm categorizing him as the dweeb that the other 3 characters constantly make him out to be, but trust me, I knew brilliantly smart people growing up, and those people didn't actively go out of their way to use unnatural, non-teenage jargon in their everyday vocabulary. What I'm saying is, he's so Hollywood stereotypically nerdy that he completely doesn't exist in real life. He's the carryover character from what everybody made fun of in the 1950s, and the stereotype didn't go away. That, and maybe they were trying to make their very own character to combat the idea of Billy in Power Rangers, who knows. Gordon's a dude who's super rich, his mom is the mayor of Beverly Hills, and he has his whole life ahead of him and just handed to him on a silver platter.
Well, you're looking at California's next great Princeton man.
Even if these kind of people exist out there in the world, there's nothing for the rest of us normal people to see in him that even remotely looks like ourselves. Not to mention he's a slimy worm of a human being and is completely unlikable. Lori is a cheerleader and is the most popular girl in school. Based on those merits alone, I see nothing to identify with here, not to mention another horribly judgmental person.
Can we get back to studying now? The midterm's on Friday.
And finally there's Drew, a poetry slam beatnik working at the coffee shop who uses dated 90s slang that I'm not sure any human being ever actually used.
Only Hanky.
Her aunt is an actress in a soap opera, and Drew is incessantly sarcastic because she thinks it means she's breaking some kind of social normality rules or something. I don't know, she's unlikable. In fact, they're all unlikable and unrelatable, and they can't even get along with one another. They're so constantly in each other's faces about the pettiest things that I can't find myself desiring to root for any of them. In fact, they're so stressed about people figuring out their identities as galactic heroes, people who aren't even looking for them to begin with, that the first 28 episodes, they specifically do everything they can to make sure they never consider one another to be friends. Only in episode 29 do they decide to drop the crappy act and just be friends already. And even then, I almost thought they were going to revert and drop that plot advancement, because even when they're friends, they're still horrible people to each other.
Well, actually, Nimbar, I believed you. But since we all just became friends on the team, I didn't want to offend the majority.
What? What a crock of baloney. You voted for the tournament.
Well, yeah, well, thanks to you and your straws, we got stuck with Lori here.
And what is that supposed to mean, friend?
Oh, well, we all know if I was chosen champion like I should have been, I wouldn't have needed any help.
What?
That's the mayor out of your
Enough!
In fact, there were all kinds of things that could have led to some legitimately interesting plot advancement, but they're all immediately dropped. Like, for example, take the time Gordon, Swinton, and Lori went rooting through Drew's diary and learned the reason why she never talks about her parents. Of course, they never reveal what that reason is to the audience. I'll have to assume they drove off a bridge down into an enormous canyon while the car was on fire, and then suddenly, before it smashed into the rocky river below, they were suddenly tractor-beamed into an alien UFO and were never heard from again. But when Drew realizes they read her diary, she's pissed and never wants to work with them ever again. Rather than getting to a point in the episode where they all realize what a big mistake they made and work legitimately on gaining Drew's trust back, you know, a story with real growth and merit to it, they instead decide to use a tool called a memory phaser to erase all their memories so that none of the four of them even remember that the incident happened at all. You know, because character development is hard. Or how about the one tropey episode where Drew and Gordon have to pretend they're dating each other for a day, which seems to cause them to actually like one another, and then at the end of the episode they have to pretend to break up, which seems to keep them from ever developing feelings for one another throughout the series at all ever again. Again, good way to avoid plot development. Or then there's the special appearance by an actor from Superhuman Samurai Syber-Squad. Granted, he's not playing his character, he's playing the character of Rick, a guy from another planet who apparently also used to be a galactic sentinel with his own team working under Nimbar. But the rest of his team was killed fighting Gorganis' forces, and now he just travels around doing whatever he wants. He stops in on Earth and becomes fond of Drew, trying to convince her to stop being a sentinel and come with him wherever he goes. But she chooses to fight, and when one of the other sentinels gets knocked out of the fight, he actually joins in as Orion, a fifth sentinel.
Orion!
Somehow they manage to form Nitron, the exact same Nitron as always. They win, and then he kisses Drew and futzes off to some other world never to be seen again. Well, gee, we might have had the opportunity for a cool new fifth sentinel. Maybe bring with him some new super form, or new cool powers and abilities, and new conflicts. Maybe there could have been this painful love triangle between Drew, Rick, and Gordon. But nope! Character development crises averted! We can just keep doing the same crap over and over again. And that's another thing. There's never a moment where anybody does anything new or refreshing. In the fights, I mean. Nobody gets any power boosts or upgrades or additions to their costumes. Nitron never becomes bigger or badder or stronger. No new weapons, nothing. There was a total of one time that Nimbar gave the kids some new piece of technology, and it was to clean spray paint graffiti. Then it immediately breaks, so they never use it again, so there goes that cool addition. Now I'll list off stupid episode plots. Swinton is too nerdy to get a date, so let's try to get him a girl by speaking to him through an earbud placed in his ear, because we've never seen any media where that goes bad. The poor kids keep teleporting back to Beverly Hills only to end up in alternate dimensions where nothing is as they remember it. The cheerleader is unpopular? Oh no! Drew fights a monster that eats her homework, and now she has to write a paper all over again. The girls try to convince the guys that they're just as good at stuff as men are in a horribly addressed equality episode where they badly try to prove their point by making fun of stereotypically manly activities, then ruin the whole message by suggesting to their teacher that there are some things men are better at than women.
I can't stand rats, so we asked Swinton and Gordon to come in and catch it,
But it got away.
They were heroes, actually.
Yes, they were heroes.
Well, I suppose then that under the circumstances it was necessary for you two to be inside.
Oh, yes, thank goodness they were nearby to help.
Men are so much better at these things than we are, don't you think?
Then there's stuff that I'm not really sure how they managed to let into a children's TV show. Aside from there being a lot of cleavage from time to time, there's this line about sunscreen.
I left some sunblock out in the car. I'll let you rub it on me when I get back.
I will assist you in that endeavor.
So cool.
And then there's this clip from an episode where the whole thing is a dream.
Gordon, think of something you like to see.
Righto.
Excuse me?
Holy crap, how did they let this fly? And so we're left with a series that simply ends without ever actually progressing anywhere and having nothing at all ever get resolved. The final episode of the series focuses on Christmas and actually tries to recreate plot points from It's a Wonderful Life, which I really wish they hadn't done, as they just take the plot to a significantly better story and try to badly appropriate it for themselves. Nimbar creates a holographic world that shows the kids what Earth would be like if they weren't galactic sentinels. The world becomes overrun and obsessed with Emperor Garganus. But even though the kids figure it out, what they don't realize is that Gorganas has taken over the holographic world and uses it to his advantage to locate and capture the galactic sentinels. But in the end, they fight Gorganas himself and win, sending him back to his evil lair, and then they go home and celebrate Christmas. But Gorganas isn't dead, and he hasn't decided to stop attacking the Earth. It's like the series ends on a Christmas break, and that's it. The series is simply over. Now, I could keep going. I really, really could. The anachronisms and other gaping plot holes that keep popping up could likely take an hour or more to cover. You would almost have to riff each and every episode of the series individually in order to cover everything wrong with it. If I can say anything positive about it, it's that they interestingly had unique insert themes all the time. You know, a large volume of unique theme songs that play during fight scenes. There's songs about the teenagers, songs about Gorganas, and songs about Nimbar. Of course, you'll never find them because there wasn't even a soundtrack released for the show. And the idea of America's very own live-action, children-aimed, transforming superhero show that wasn't based on Japanese footage was certainly an interesting concept. But the execution was so bad, I don't know how it managed its 40-episode run, and I don't know who was demanding for it to get a DVD released. But they must not want it that bad, because you can order it brand new from Amazon for as little as $7. I'm sure somebody wants it. You want it? Go and get it. But honestly, after all of this, don't you think there's a reason why the whole thing is only $7? I wish I could just forget it, you know? Wait. Maybe I can. You remember how Nimbar let those kids use that memory phaser thing all the time? Well, look, I got one right here. And don't ask how I got it, because it's not like the show ever explained how anything worked ever, right? So, I guess all I gotta do is use it just like they use it in the show, and then... What in the world? Why am I here? Oh, camera. Oh, well, it must be time for me to record a request review then. Alright, today we're talking about the Transformers the movie. Wait, why isn't there any time left? I just got started. What do you mean the review's over? How did it get this late? Where did all the time go? Come on, guys. This is getting pretty freaky here. Time to be straight with me, alright? What's going on? Guys?